Hi friends, welcome to my channel. I'm Tirso and I'm an art director based in New York City. In today's video, we are talking about the design process. The general consensus seems to be that design is done on a computer. However, design is mostly process, which is how we deliver results at a high standard consistently. Some of you already have a process in place, whereas others may be intimidated by it or don't really know what to do. So for the purposes of this video, I want to simplify it for you so that you can implement it into your designs. A little backstory on this: on top of my job creating branded content, I also handle some of the internal design needs. This is a logo for Good Impressions, which is a new pro bono media and marketing consultation program. If you are a BIPOC or LGBTQIA+ business, you can use the link in the description below to learn more about the program. I only had a day to work on this logo. Obviously that's not great, but I do know my process and I was confident that I would figure it out. It would be great to win all the awards, but this was not the opportunity. The goal of this was to have the design that makes sense and have meaning behind it. So let's treat my colleagues as a client since they'll choose the final logo. Unless you are in design school or work at an agency where you're answering RFPs, there is never a design brief. Just because you don't have a design brief doesn't mean that you can't make one, and here's how I do it. I did a word association brainstorm with the team to hear what messaging was important to them, and here is the list of words that I gathered from that meeting. When working with clients, they're not always visual people, but we have to be because it's our job to create the visuals for what they're thinking. So taking this brainstorm of words, we can edit down to only words that we can show visually. From here, we can group some of these words together. Now that we've done that, we can create a sort of mission statement to give us direction. I ended with, the Good Impressions logo should portray unity and change with a human aspect to amplify BIPOC voices. And that's our brief. Simple, but there's everything that you need in there to get started. It has a deliverable, a logo, it has an audience, BIPOC, and it has pillars to ladder back to: unity, change, a human aspect, and amplifying voices. We have a brief, we can move on to research. For this project, I kept it simple and just looked for icons under each pillar that can be incorporated. It's important not to edit at this point, just pull as many things as possible. Literally when I was doing this, these two arrows are essentially the same, but I was just pulling. Typically you would do extensive research to really nail it, but again, I had a one-day turnaround, so I just needed a point of reference. If you don't know where to start with research, just use Google and Pinterest. Actually, if you're on Pinterest, feel free to follow my boards. I pin things mostly for my projects, but they might be helpful for you as well. For icons, I use the Noun Project, which I feel like is an industry favorite. You Work For Them is also great for inspiration, and all of these are linked in the description below. We can now move on to implementing our research into the actual design. Since this is a logo, I like to look at the words in a serif and a sans serif, as well as options for a lowercase, an uppercase, and a title case. From here, we can find opportunities for design. I saw that Good has two O's to work with. We could explore something with the counters, or the two O's can interact with one another. For the O's, I know that Gotham has the most rounded O's, so I started there. For anyone that wants to comment me why I'm using Gotham in 2021, I just don't want to be capped by trends, and I think that if it works, then it works. For the record, most freelance clients love Gotham, so don't kill yourself. This is one of the longest stages of the process because you don't know until you see it. I encourage you, don't be shy, be prolific, and explore as much as possible. Let's look at some of the things that I explored. So right away, I just wanted to see this in a whole bunch of fonts in both serif and sans serif, and then I also tried some script fonts that you'll see on the bottom left there. In the original meeting, somebody mentioned spray paint, so I wanted to explore what that could look like, but I wanted to do it in a clean way. Here, I'm using a vertical version and a horizontal version. I also experimented with icons where I mixed the spray paint lines with vectors that I took from Gotham. I then tried it with the words. I wasn't really liking this direction, but at least I had them as options. Impressions was so much longer than good, so I wanted to explore ways where I could find a balance between the two. These options play off of the word impressions. I wanted to mimic debossed paper. On the bottom right, I also tried to include the idea of spray paint with this option as well. I mentioned earlier that I wanted to play off of the O's in the word good. This direction was based off of the concept of unity. One of the pillars in our brief is to amplify voices, so I wanted to play off of speech bubbles as if they were having a conversation. This was the only lockup that worked between the two, so I wanted to explore it with different fonts. On the left side, you'll see the original direction, and then on the right side, you'll see the inverse option where good is solid and impressions is outlined. When you're presenting your work to a client, be buttoned up as possible. Clearly, I can't show the exploration page, so what I did was I put one logo execution per page so that they can focus on one, and it allowed me to talk about the meaning behind it. These are the final logos that I wanted to present to the team. I didn't love the direction with the spray paint, but because somebody mentioned it, I just wanted to show that I did explore that option. After presenting all the options, they'll usually ask me questions about some of the executions. This used to be so intimidating for me, but once I refined my process, I understood that I've justified every design decision, so there's very few questions that I really can't answer. You'll get feedback on what you presented to the client, and all you have to do is go back and refine. In the event that the feedback isn't so great, you'll have to go back to an earlier stage of the design process, which I find often to be the research phase or the exploration phase. It may seem like you're starting from scratch, but you've already explored a lot of ideas, and some ideas you know the client doesn't want already. So again, all you're doing is refining. I went back with these revisions, and they ended up choosing this. A couple things that I want to note: it's so important that you give your client what they want and not what they're asking for. Let's go back to the original brainstorm with them. What they were originally asking was for something to amplify sound. The logo they ended up choosing focuses more on a conversation. Is this a groundbreaking logo? No. Have you seen something similar to it before? Probably. However, because we follow the design process, the solution makes sense and has meaning. Thanks so much for watching. I want you to understand the design process and be able to implement it into your own projects. I promise that once you start seeing results, you'll never design without a process again. Comment below with the stages that you enjoy most or the ones that you're struggling with. I'll see you in the next video.